Hi everybody, welcome to this week's homework video. Let's get straight into it. Okay, so this week we have been speaking about figurative language, and we understand that figurative language is language that we use in our writing, devices that we put into our writing to make our writing a lot more descriptive, beautiful, colorful, creative. Okay, it really helps make our stories and our creative writing a lot more vivid for our reader. And each type of figurative language, and we've got 6 that we need to know, which are on the screen. Well, the first letter is on the screen. Each type of figurative language does something different, all right? And we need to be able to recognize each type of figurative language in the text, and also need to be able to create our own types of each figurative language, okay? So a good way of an acronym, like we have done for SNAPS and non-verbal reasoning. We've got an acronym to help us remember all the types of figurative language that we need to know, and it's SHAMPO. It's nearly shampoo, but it's shampoo, okay? And each letter obviously stands for a different type of figurative language. So what I'm going to do in about 10 to 15 seconds is I'm going to show you all of the different types of figurative language, but what you might want to do is pause the screen and have a go at seeing if you can remember every type, or see how many you can remember. Okay, so I'm going to show you in 3, 2, 1. Okay, we've got similes, hyperboles, alliteration, metaphor, personification, and onomatopoeia. Those are 6 types that we need to know, okay? And like I said a minute ago, not only do we need to be able to use this in our own writing, but we also need to be able to spot it in other people's writing, and that's what we're going to practice, okay? Now, you don't have to remember all 6 types of figurative language in one day or in one week. Of course not, but they're here for you if you fancy the challenge of trying to record them without looking, which might be a good idea because it means you're more familiar. But don't worry if you can't remember all of them, because we're going to focus on one type at a time. And this week we're we're focusing on personification. Okay, personification is probably my favorite type of figurative language. We see it all the time in text, sometimes without even realizing it. Okay. And personification is a great way of making your writing more engaging, more vivid, and bringing your writing to life. Okay, so what is personification? Now, the clue is in the name. Yeah, personification, person. So this, if you ever do forget what personification is, just think about the first 2 syllables here, person. It relates to people. Okay. Personification is an effective writing device in which we make non-human things behave like humans. So we take something that isn't human and make it act like a human being, which sounds quite bizarre at first, but when you see a few examples, you realize that actually it's effective and it works. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read this text to you. Now, I know that we've read this text already, but I'm going to read it once more because I really want you to understand in full depth how this personification works and what it adds to the story. So, oh yeah, what I'd like to do then is every time as I'm reading, every time I say something that you think is personification, just say something out loud. Maybe say personification, or maybe say here. Yeah, every time I use personification, because I really want you to get into the habit of noticing it very quickly. All right. So here we go. The house sulked under crying clouds. Naked trees swayed their bony fingers as if warning visitors away. The moon hid quickly behind the cotton sky, and now the only visible light came from the flicker of a candle in the top window. "We're here," gasped Alex. "We finally made it." Alex and his best friend Zara had battled against stubborn bushes and dangling branches to make it this far. Despite being warned on a number of occasions to stay away from the locally named the miserable abandoned house, the friends decided to ignore all warnings and succumb to their curiosity. Are you going in?" stuttered Zara. Alex acknowledged Zara's question before looking up at the clouds, which were now sobbing even more energetically than before. "Well, I'm not prepared to get wet," replied Alex. Okay, so it's not a very long text, it's a very short text. But having said that, although it's very short, there are many cases of personification in this text. Okay, so hopefully as I was going through, you noticed some, but let's quickly, we won't talk about all of them because there's too many. But what I will do is I'll highlight all examples. So we've got the house sulking. It's acting like a human. It's sulking under crying clouds. Now, like I said, we won't talk about all of them, but let's just talk about those two. So the house sulked, what does that mean to you? What does it mean for a human to sulk? If you think about a human sulking, they're sitting there with a frown on their face. They're upset about something. And if we apply that to a house, we're thinking about this house that's miserable, a house that's upset. Why would the house be upset? It's certainly not going to be a nice, beautiful, bright, brilliant white house with a fence and bushes and shrubbery and flowers around it, is it? If it's a sulking house, we're going to think of the sort of house that we see in this picture below. Okay, now remember, many novels and many stories don't have pictures. So if we were to use this writing without the aid of this picture on the screen, if we were to say the house sulked, it would give the reader a much better idea. And that's why we use personification. Okay, so the house sulked under crying clouds. Well, we know clouds don't cry, but if we think about a human crying, when a human cries, water or tears come from their eyes, right? So if you think about a cloud, if we apply it to a cloud, what's obviously happening? It's raining, okay? But if we say the house sulked under raining clouds, it just loses a lot of its creativity and a lot of its poetry, okay? So we must make sure that when we have the opportunity, we're as creative with personification as possible, okay? Naked trees swayed their bony fingers as if warning visitors away. The trees are naked. What does that mean? It means they've got no leaves. Yeah. And again, it gives us forget this picture for a second. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide this picture if I can. Because if you think about, like I said a minute ago, if you think about this story without any visual aids, you can see why personification is quite important. Naked trees, or when we think about a tree with no leaves, well, we've got a good idea of what the season is. Autumn, winter, dark, it's miserable, it's gloomy, it's dull, and it's adding to the atmosphere of the story, okay? Bony fingers, warning visitors away. I've highlighted the wrong word. I should have highlighted warning. Oops. All right, there we go. Warning visitors away. So the tree has bony fingers, but of course it doesn't have fingers. So what we're talking about, we're talking about the branches and the twigs. They look like fingers. They're warning visitors away. And it adds to the atmosphere of the story. Of course, a tree isn't doing that, but it is intimidating. It is dark. It is horrible looking. And it kind of looks like the way it's moving is telling visitors to stay away from this house. Okay. Now, there are many more types of personification, but I won't go through all of them in depth, but I'll just quickly show them to you. So we've got the moon hiding. We've got the stubborn bushes. We've got the miserable abandoned house. The clouds are sobbing. Yeah, I might have missed one somewhere. If I have missed one, maybe you can find it. I'm not too sure. But yeah, you can see many cases of personification in such a small text. Now, had you read that without knowing what personification is? Or if someone else reads this and they've never learned about personification, they might miss what's going on. They might not understand that there's so many cases of personification being used, but it's still going into their heads, it's still going into their brains, and the author is still achieving what they set out to achieve, which is to make a really vivid, descriptive visual to add to the story. Okay, so we need to be good at identifying personification, but we also need to be great at writing our own personification, which we're going to practice. Okay. Okay, so your turn. So Alex and Zara have now entered the house. So I read a part of the story. Now let's imagine that they've gone inside the house. Your job is, can you write the next part of the story? Tier 1, write as much as you can, but you must personify at least 3 different objects within the house. Tier 2, write as much as you can, but you must personify at least 5 different objects within the house. Use at least 3 different word classes to begin your sentences. And tier 3, write as much as you can, personify as much as you can, at least 5 times, but begin your sentences with 5 different word classes. Okay, now I'm not going to remind you of the word classes. If you don't remember, there's a few things you can do. You can go and look at the last homework video or the first homework video. You can ask a sibling, a relative, a friend, a parent, or with your parents' permission, you can look it up on the internet. Okay, but I don't want to remind you because it's now time that we either keep it in our heads and keep practicing it, or we find out how to find out the information all by ourselves. Okay, it's a really important skill to be able to know where to look for information. But of course, it doesn't mean we're not going to talk about word classes together. We will keep talking about word classes as the year goes on. So that's they are the 3 tiers. Now, just really quickly, I don't want to give you too many clues because I really want to see how creative you can be. But think about this. If you're in a house, or your characters are in a house and you need to write some personification, think about all the things that can be personified. There are so many things. Imagine it now. You're walking into this horrible looking house. Think about all the things that might be personified. The door, the flooring or the carpet, or the floorboards, the stairs, clocks, flowers, vases, flowers inside vases, maybe some artwork on the wall, maybe some different, what was it that we spoke about in lesson? We spoke about something in lesson that we personified that was in the that was inside the office, but I forgot what it was. The fan. So maybe there's a fan in the that one might be a bit unlikely, because it's unlikely that if it's a derelict mansion that's been neglected, there's a working fan. But maybe it's your story, it's up to you. The point is, make sure you understand that anything can be personified. Anything can look, act, behave like a human. Okay, so the options of objects that you can personify are unlimited. There are so many different things. Okay, so think carefully, write the next part of the story, and really focus on bringing those objects to life. Okay. Okay, so you might want to pause the video at this point and do this, or maybe you want to do this task at the end. It's up to you, but I'm going to move on now, so do pause if you're doing this work now. Okay, so this week we've also looked at some verbal reasoning, and we looked at the hidden 4-letter word type of verbal reasoning. There are 2 rules. First rule is the hidden word must be 4 letters long, and the second rule is the hidden word must be stretched across 2 words. So I would say that quite a few of us were a bit confused with this at first, and you're supposed to be. Yeah, remember what I keep saying. If you see something for the first time, it's completely reasonable that it confuses you. But let's make sure we really understand it, because this is a very common type of verbal reasoning question. So here are the rules again. The hidden word must be 4 letters long, and the hidden word must be stretched across 2 words. Ignore that red rectangle. The hidden word must be stretched across 2 words. So what does that mean? That means that in this sentence, there is a 4-letter word that's hidden. It's definitely 4 letters. Sometimes some students say, well, I found one that's 3 letters long, or I found one that's 5 letters long. Great, but that's not the rule. The rule is it must be 4 letters, and it must stretch across 2 words. Okay, so there's 2 techniques you can use. The first technique is very obvious, and that's literally just scan your eyes across it and see if anything jumps out at you. And where you really want to be focusing is at the end of one word and the beginning of another word. Yeah. So, and we know it must be 4 letters. So, for example, when we're focusing, we want to be looking either. There we go, we've got 4 letters. So it could be 2 and 2, couldn't it? 2 letters at the end of one word and 2 letters at the beginning of the other. It could be 1 and 3. It could be 3 and 1, like this, TEDI. Okay, so you really want to be focusing at the ends and beginnings of consecutive words that are next to each other. Okay, the other technique that you can use, which does prove quite effective for a lot of people, is the ruler technique. Now, imagine this red rectangle is a ruler. Okay, what you could do is get a ruler and cover the entire sentence, and then drag the ruler along every time you have 4 new letters that are next to each other that are stretched across 2 words. So here we've got H-E-W-A, Hewa. We know that's not a word, so we can keep going. E-W-A-N, Ewan, that's not a word. And now we are at the next word. So we know that not to look here because it's got to be stretched across 2 words. So let's go to the next word. We've got T-E-D-I, Teddy. Teddy is a word, isn't it? But it's not spelled like that. So let's keep moving. E-D-I-T, edit. Edit is a word. We have found our hidden word. Now, be careful when you're reading words. Consider them very carefully, because what a lot of people do is they do this. They go Teddy, Edie, Edith. And they're like, oh, Edith's not a word, because they're so focused on the letters that they forget that the pronunciation can go a little bit wrong. So we've got to be careful. When we see 4 letters, really consider how it might be pronounced, okay? So the answer is edit. Let's look at the next one, which is here. Have a go at this. Pause the video. Give yourself some time. See if you can find it. If you really can't find it, play the video and I'll tell you where it is. Okay. So the answer to this question is right here. S-W-A-N, swan. Does it fulfill the criteria? It's 4 letters long, yes. It's stretched across 2 words, yes. This is the correct answer, okay? So this next task is not tiered, so can everyone have a go at the same questions here? Can you find the 5 hidden words in these sentences? Okay, write them down, take a photo of them, ask your parent to send it to me. Good luck. Okay, moving on. Let's talk about vocabulary. We have now learned 6 words. Now you might forget 1, you might forget 2, you might forget all of them. The only way that we're going to remember as many of these words as possible is by making sure we regularly practice them, we regularly use them. If we don't use stuff that's in our brain gets rid of it. This is a fact, okay? If we have something in our brain and when your brain is deciding what to leave in and what to throw out, if your brain knows that you never use the word ecstatic or never use the word apprehensive, your brain's going to be like, well, we don't need this. We need to free up some room, so let's get rid of it, okay? The only way we can keep these new words up there is by using them so that your brain says, well, we use this word quite a lot. We see this word quite a lot. Let's keep it. This is important, okay? So make sure that we do this. But what I'd like you to do is, we don't have to do this on any paper or anything. It's just a quick activity that you can do with me. I'm going to link these words on the left to the synonym on the right. So we'll start off with apprehensive. I'm going to give you about 5 to 10 seconds for each one. Where should I link apprehensive? Say it before I do it. Which one of these words has the closest meaning to apprehensive? The answer is anxious. Okay, let's move on to cautious. Which one of these words is most similar to cautious? Which one should I link it to? The answer is sensible. Next one, we've got detest. Which one of these words is most similar to detest? Where should I link it? Have you got the answer? The answer is dislike. And then we move on to ecstatic. Which one of these words is closest to ecstatic? Where should I link it? Overjoyed. 2 more. Listless. Which one of these is a synonym for listless? Is it furious? Is it sluggish? I think it's sluggish. All right, the last one. There's only one left on the side, so you should know what the answer is. Livid is a synonym for furious. Okay, so the words on the right aren't terrible words, actually. The words in red are, some of those words, it's good vocabulary, but it's a good idea to have more than one word to be able to express yourself for the same feeling. Yeah. So rather than say when you might feel anxious and apprehensive, we can switch between the two. We can show off our vocabulary, especially in our writing. All right. That's why it's so important to make sure that we have we know synonyms and we have good vocabulary, because we really want to prove that we can express ourselves in many different ways. But another thing we should also be careful of is remembering the degree of difference between words, which we spoke about very briefly. Don't worry if you've forgotten, because we haven't spoken about it much. But when I'm talking about the degree of difference, what I'm talking about is, although some of these words mean the same thing, some of these words kind of have a higher degree of that meaning. So what I mean is, if we think about detest and dislike, they're synonyms. They mean a very similar thing, but dislike suggests that you don't like something, whereas detest suggests that you hate something, okay? And you can see the difference between the two. Dislike means you just don't like something, and detest means you really, really dislike something. You hate something, okay? So also, that's why it's another good idea to have good vocabulary, because you can be more expressive about how you feel about something, okay? So on the left-hand side, forget the words on the right for a second. It'd be great if you do know those words, but these words on the left are the most important. These are the ones that I need you to remember. If you forget the meanings of these words, they're on the website, okay? if you're at this point of recording this video, I haven't yet put the new words on the website, but hopefully I'll do that very, very soon. So hopefully by the time you watch this video, they will be on the website. But if not, it won't be too long, I promise. Okay. Okay, here's another task for you to do at home. Tier 1, can you write 3 sentences? Each sentence must include one of the words above. So we've got these words at the top of the screen, yeah? So 3 sentences, each sentence must have one of these words. And each sentence must include an adverb. Okay, tier 2, can you write 5 sentences? Each sentence must include one of the words above. Each sentence must include a preposition. Tier 3, can you write 6 sentences? Each sentence must include one of the words above. Each sentence must include an adverb and a preposition. Tier 3 is tough. Tier 3 is very tough, okay? But I believe in you. If you want to give it a go, please do give it a go. If you fall short, don't worry. I really appreciate you giving it a go, okay? But if it is too tough, go a tier lower. Year 4s, those of you that are doing tier 2, if you fancy having a go at tier 3 and can achieve it, that would be amazing, okay? If anyone finds this super, super, super tough, just try tier 1. But I would really appreciate you at least giving tier 3 a go at first, okay? All right, remember, with homework, if you could just take a picture of it and have your parents send it to me, that would be amazing. That would be very, very useful, very, very convenient. Okay. Yes, one more thing that I really want to talk about is context. I'm just going to hide this thing at the bottom of the screen for a minute. I don't want to confuse you. Context is really important, okay? When showing you know how to use a word, you should add context. This means that you need to add information which proves you know what the word means. So, for example, if I ask you to write a sentence with the word ecstatic and you come back with, he felt ecstatic today, that doesn't prove you know what it means, because ecstatic could mean anything. Ecstatic could mean hungry. Ecstatic could mean upset. He felt upset today. He felt hungry today. You haven't proven that you know what ecstatic means. You need context. You need to add a bit more to the sentence, which proves that you know what ecstatic means. Here's an example, right? Their holiday to Disney World had finally arrived and they were ecstatic. There is enough context in that sentence to suggest that we know what ecstatic means, because in pretty much every case of someone going to Disney World, they would feel happy and excited, which is what ecstatic means. Yeah, so I've added context to the sentence, the fact that they are going to Disney World. So someone that doesn't know what ecstatic means, that's reading the sentence, can probably work out what ecstatic means. Okay, so when you are doing the task here, think about context. Okay. Okay, well done, guys. Thank you very much for watching. As always, if there's anything that's really confused in this video, please make sure you let me know. I look forward to seeing your responses. Have a lovely weekend or enjoy the rest of your week, depending on what time you're watching this. Bye.